Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. When everyone arrived at his where Naruto family lived, he was in awe. He had seen the outside before when Tsunade and Shinzun lived here but never passed the front gate because ABNU always stopped him and got them. So now that he saw what was inside the walls where they lived, he was surprised. A beautiful garden with several variety of flowers which were in full bloom but looked like they could use some work trimming were everywhere. Next was a stone walkway around the two-story house and a relaxation area on the left side with a gazebo, a personal hot spring with a dividing wall for privacy around it, and down the middle. The right side of the house had a mason workshop and an indoor gym area with training dummies, a sparring ring and weight sets. The back of the house was a complete sparring area. There were tall trees, a pond that fed and was fed by the same pond, and that a underground feed. A small desert and a level open ground area with training post. The group was led into the house and showed a formal dining area that you see 200 and needed. A huge kitchen, an impressive library with several uncommon jutsu and jutsu for the bloodline of wood and water users. Naruto smiled when he saw this and remembered something what happened the Christmas right before they came back. Flashback. Naruto and Ino had been seeing each other for about 3 months and it was Christmas time. Konoha had already been destroyed and they were in Suna preparing for a hit-and-run battle to try and stop any member of Akatsuki to survive. So far they had stopped 3 members by sending a group specialized to take out 1 member. Naruto had been searching for Ino something for Christmas. Ino was currently at the little apartment him and her shared, watching over Sakura baby girl Blossom. A name her mother and father both thought would be something to remind her of both of them. Naruto came across an abandoned building near the edge of Suna and saw what looked like a dying little potted plant in the window. The house had been abandoned about 2 weeks now after Gaara ordered most civilians to Snow Country under Princess Yukie protection. Since it was so hard to get to and being isolated like it was, it still had not been attacked. Naruto went inside the building and checked the plant and saw it was still alive. He smiled and took out his canteen of water and gave the plant a little and thought, I don't know anything about plants, but maybe my healing ability will help you to look better. I guess you are the best I can get, Ino. I hope she like you. And he started channeling a little chakra into it. The plant went from having brown dying leaves to the leaves started getting green Aegean and a single red rose appeared on it. Naruto smiled and thought, maybe I got Granny Tsunade granddad ability. Too bad no one know how to use it now. If I did. Who knows? And so he took the rose plant to Ino for Christmas. Flashback end. Ino saw Naruto smiled and said, what got you smiling looking in the library of all places? Naruto just said, I was remembering our last Christmas before coming back. Ino smiled and said, you never did tell me where you found such a healthy-looking rose plant in the middle of Suna during winter, no less, when almost all civilians had been evacuated to snow. Naruto said, you can say I grew it just for you. Ino said, that's not fair. You still won't tell me. And she pouted with her arms across her chest. They continue exploring the house and found several bedrooms with a personal bath for every room. They finally found Naruto room and found all new beds and dresser with no just what clothes he had. Shizune said, tomorrow we will go get you some new clothes. I will leave you 2 alone and let you explore. And she left. Sakura left shortly after they got here when she got a signed copy of Volume 15 from the author of Ika Ika Paradise, along with Kakashi getting one also. Tsunade and Jiraiya had stopped in the dining room and started to share some sake. Ino said, I got to go home for a little bit, but I am coming back to see you after you had a chance to think about everything and take a shower since you are still dirty from the trip back. Naruto walked over and kissed her and said, Thank you for finally giving me my family. Ino smiled and said, I would do anything to make you happy. I will see you in a little while. And she left. Naruto sighed and went to the bathroom to take a long shower and think. When Naruto got out of the shower, he dried off and got out a pair of frog boxers and a black sleeveless t-shirt and laid down on his bed and fell asleep. Ino sat beside Naruto panting and looked into his eyes and was engulfed in a passionate kiss and then laid beside each other and telling the other I love you before passing out. About an hour later a knock was heard on the door and woke both up. Ino quickly but sorely went to the bathroom and Naruto grabbed a pair of shorts out of a drawer and unlocked the door before opening it. Sakura was there and said, I came by looking for Ino and was told she's here, and walked into the bedroom and looked around. Naruto said, she's in the bathroom right now. Sakura nodded and sat down on a chair beside a desk in the room. Naruto quickly started to pick up the clothes on the floor when Sakura was not looking, and when he picked up the teddy he saw Sakura shooting him a look that said, am I interrupting something? Naruto threw everything into his hamper and sat down on the edge of the bed. A few moments later Ino came out walking awkward and said, Sakura, what are you doing here? As she sat on the bed. Sakura said, I came to see you and ask if you would tell me no about my future self and a few other thing, but I think I came at a bad time if the cloths Naruto picked up was yours. Naruto got up and went to the bathroom. When he was gone Ino sighed and said, yeah, they were mine. I wanted him and that's what I got. Sakura sat beside Ino blushing and said, so, how was he in it? Ino said, high stamina is a plus and it was great. Sakura leaned over while still blushing and said, so how big? Ino blushed and said, I say about a 10 to 12, big and strong. It hurt at first because it was mine and his first, but it was all worth it. Sakura smiled and said, I am envious. So who am I going to be married to and what else am I like in the future? Ino sighed and said, I will tell you because it may not happen since things can and hopefully do change. You marry a man named Rock Lee. Right now his looks are scary because he idolizes his sensei to the point of obsession. Because of you he slowly changes over time and finally get a different haircut and his eyebrows trimmed to look normal. I won't tell you anything else but this. Give up on Sasuke and look for new people. Maybe you and Lee will hook up Aegean, maybe not, but I don't want to see my best friend die Aegean because of some stupid. It nearly killed the both of us. Sakura nodded and said, I won't make the same mistake this time. Can I ask you something that has bothered me ever since graduation day and now that I hear you mention that? Ino nodded and Sakura said, what was Naruto really like before you and him toward me? Ino laughed a little and said, to answer that you should realize Naruto had a terrible life before because of the Kyuubi and only had a real family for a moment before it was gone. He had a crush on you until the age of 15 or 16 because he did love you but learned later that it was the love of a sister. He never knew what different types of love was like until then. He saved you life several times from certain death and almost rape once when a mission went bad. The bastard that ran that slavering got to meet Kyuubi's power firsthand. Naruto let his emotions out when four of the bastard had you held down with chains and he used four tail of power and slaughtered him and his men. When the backup team arrived most of us lost our lunch at the scene. Naruto does not talk about it, but what really changed him was when Temari was killed. She had been a sisterly kind of love to him and after her death since Gaara was the brother he never had. He realized that was the same for you. Sakura looked down and said, is our future really that bad? Ino said, only if we fail to change it. Sakura smiled and said, so how did you and Naruto really start? He told me he saved you from a snake outside the walls of our village. Ino laughed and said, Actually, that's a pretty good tale of how it happened. Sasuke attacked the village with an army, and Naruto by this time was our major powerhouse, and it was before we started seedling. Sasuke used his hidden snake hands to send a viper at me to distract Naruto so he could kill him. Naruto took the bite for me, and you broke 6 of Sasuke ribs in one punch when he was distracted. I had already started to like him before that, but caused me to fall for him. It was not for several years though before we got together as a couple, but it never got past kissing. Naruto blamed himself for all our friends dying and would not let anyone get too close. Sakura smiled and said, "So he really is your knight in shining armor. Whatever happened to Hinata and her mega crush?" Naruto, who had came out during the tale of them falling for each other, said, "I was never an idiot when it came to her crush for me. I just valued my life to act on it back when we were younger. I had words with Hiash back then after Hinata started using me as a crutch for her emotional strength. He may seem like a bastard, but he really does care for Hinata. It's his counsel you have to watch out for. Hinata was a close friend and will always be, but I don't see any romantic stuff between us because to me she is my little sister, which is very hard when she practically throws herself at you, but she is my little sis. Just like you are my older sister Sakura. Before I went on my 3-year training trip, I finally sat down with her and discussed it, and after having her explain it and Granny Tsunade pumping her full of caffeine and adrenaline to keep her from passing out, I then got her to realize the feeling she had for me was respect and idolism, not love. We never told anyone about it, and she started looking at her teammates and started to date Shino. She died the day they were going to secretly get married so the council would not find out. Shino was cruel to the Kabuto for that. He him dry of chakra, while having his bugs eat him from the inside out. Sakura said, "We have got some sadistic friends. I am glad I am not their enemy." Ino smiled and said, "So anything else you want to know?" Sakura said, "What are you planning on doing with Sasuke?" Naruto said, "If he follows the same path and flees the village, kill him. He will be the cause of over half our friends dying. His brother and his organization the other half." Sakura nods and said, "Well, I guess I will go now." Next day Naruto got up and after getting ready came downstairs and found his new family at the table eating, saw a plate for him waiting. Naruto sat down and said, "So how is everyone today?" Everyone looked at him and smiled, and Shizune said, "Naruto, can I ask you something?" Naruto waited till he swallowed his food and shook his head yes while looking at her. Shizune said, "What do you really think about us?" Truthfully. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment and then said as he looked at them, "Truthfully, I love you all. I know it's weird me knowing you all different but you not knowing me. I admit when I first found out who you all were I was hurt because I had been alone all my life family-wise beside the third who was like a grandpa to me when he could before he died. But you all had become precious to me in my other life. Mom, you were like a sister to me that would help doctor me when I was hurt emotionally or physically more than I could take. Grandpa, you were the uncle nobody liked to talk about but you taught me a lot and helped me grow strong and proud. Grandma, you were like the aunt who would spoil me when she could and nobody was looking. Everyone in the village found out the hard way. Never call me demon when you were around because you had to build a whole wing to the hospital just for victim of your wrath, and I made you put a few gray hairs in your genjutsu from the hell I caused you. We may have not known then we were related until it was too late, but you were and are my family that I love." Shizune got up and hugged Naruto before crying. After a while she finally stopped and they finished their dinner. Shizune said after they finished cleaning up, "Let's go get you some new clothes with your clan symbol." They all left together and headed into town. They stopped by the Yamanko flower shop and picked up Ino. As they were leaving, Tsunade said, "Ino, why are you walking with a limp today?" Ino looked at Naruto and said, I pushed myself too hard yesterday and I am sore today. Tsunade said, Ah, I understand. That's common anyways. She then did a few seals and her hand started to glow green and touched Ino's stomach and legs before saying, that should help. I suggest going easier from now on. More enjoyable and less aches. Jiraiya laughed and Shizune shot Ino a look that said, what are you doing with my son and we need to talk. They finally made it to the Wolfclaw weapon shop and walked in. The man behind the counter said, Hi, my name is Dustin and welcome to my family shop. How can I help you? Tsunade said, we are here to get Naruto here some new cloths and supplies. Dustin smiled and said, sure, just help yourself and if you need anything ask. Shizune said, go ahead and get whatever you want. They started looking around the shop and Naruto stopped and said, can you make custom weapons? Everyone looked at him and Dustin said, yes I can. I just need you to write down what you need and I can make anything. Naruto nodded and picked up a blank scroll and a paintbrush and started writing. Everyone else left him alone and looked around the shop. 5 minutes later he stooped and rolled up the scroll and said, I need the weapon on this scroll made in the quantity order with the seals engraved into it and please do not tell anyone the info on it besides whoever has to help with them. The man nodded and opened the scroll and dropped it and said, are you messing with me, kid? Naruto said, no, I am serious. I take it from the look you know what those are for, so I will just say please be careful with that info if you can make them. Dustin said, I can make them, that's not the problem because I done them before. I just never expected someone to know them. Can I catch you name? Naruto said, my name is Naruto. Shizune said, Kazama, Naruto Kazama. Dustin said, now I know why you know Hiraishin. Everyone but Ino stopped and looked at Naruto when they heard that and Naruto said, I don't. I never could do it right because the Kunia I had most of the seals damaged and I had to start from almost scratch to create a version of it. If I had the original seals I might have been as good as dad. Mine only let me go about 100 feet between Kunia to work. Dustin nodded and said, I can make these seals on the scroll for you but I still have the master mold with the original seals still intact in a secret vault. I could make you some to try and master the Hiraishin then. Naruto said, can you make 200 of the ones I wrote and put the appropriate seals into both sealing scroll and make me 10 of the other ones? Ino said, what exactly is the Hiraishin you are talking about? Jiraiya said, it's the jutsu that earned the Yodime the nickname Yellow Flash. Ino said, oh, if Naruto drawed those strang kunia he used before then his was a red flash but it ate his chakra like a kid in a candy store. After doing it almost 200 times he was almost dead from exhaustion. Naruto went through the ninja clothing and found some black shinobi clothes similar to his shapeshift clothes he has on but notices these were better with built-in holsters for kunia, shurikens, scrolls, and still have room for more. Naruto decided to try them on and he also found a jacket with a strap for his sword. He got a few soldier pills packs and first aid packs with blood replenishing and clotting pills and some medical wrapping. He went to the changing room to change. When he came out in a pair of black ninja pants and a tight black fishnet shirt and a black ninja vest halfway zipped over it with the jacket on also unzipped with his sword on his back, he noticed that Ino was standing there waiting to see him and Tenten was beside he. He smiled and said, so how do I look? Ino said, good enough to eat. This is Tenten, her family owns this place. Tenten, I would like you to meet Naruto, my fiancé. Tenten had a small amount of drool hanging and after Ino snapped her fingers said, I think you were in my class 2 years back. Naruto said, yeah I was, I goofed around too much back then. Ino saw the look on Tenten's face and knew it well and said, I think that should be all for today Naruto. Let's get you a few more copies of those and have them altered. Naruto nodded and went back inside to change back, and Ino said, like what you see, Tenten. Tenten blushed and said, I don't know what you are talking about, Ino. Ino said, relax, I know he's a great guy. That's why I am going to marry him when we get old enough. Tenten said, you're lucky. Ino smiled and said, thanks. Truthfully, do you like him? Tenten said, he's cute and from what I remember he was a decent guy, but I don't know much about him. Why? Ino said, I know this sounds odd, but you see, we already found out I can't have kids for a reason, and Naruto was told that since he comes from such a special family he has to marry more than one girl and have children. Naruto does not want to do it because he is faithful to me, but the council will force him to, so I decided that I would have to find someone who is nice and decent enough for him that would treat him right, and since I knew you for a few years now and saw you drooling earlier, I would give you a shot to get to know him and maybe one day marry him. He can't go against the council, and if he does not follow the rules and produce an heir, the council will pick some off the street and force him to marry her. Tenten was stunned and said, so let me get this straight. Because of his family background he has to have a child, and since you can't have one you are pimping him out. Ino laughed and said, in a manner of speaking, yes. So what do you say? Tenten thought for a moment and said, I will agree to date him once and go from there. If I don't like him I will back out. If I do, then fine. They watch as Naruto put his cloths on the counter and Shizune and Tsunade explained what they wanted on his cloths and paid. Both girls walked up to them and Ino said, tonight at 6, okay? Tenten nodded as they all left. Dustin said, what was that all about? Tenten said, I got a date tonight at 6 with Naruto. Dustin said, I thought the way that Ino was all over him she was with him. Tenten said, she is, but since they are getting married she is trying to solve a problem before it starts. Dustin said, what? Tenten said, she can't have kids, and because of who his family is he has to have children, so she decided she would find him the right woman before the Kusal pick up some random girl off the street. Dustin said, and you're okay with that? Tenten said, I don't know. That's why I agreed to the date. Naruto said as he was walking with his family and Ino to get some ramen, so what was that all about? Ino said, you have a date with Tenten tonight at 6. Everyone looked at her like she was crazy and Naruto said, what? Ino sighed and said, I know you, Naruto. You would defy the council and get in trouble and still have to marry someone of their choosing, so I decided I would find someone who is a good person who we both could get along with and set you up on a date so you can get to know them and then you and everyone wins. Tsunade said to Shizune, looks like you future daughter-in-law is the take charge kind of woman. Shizune sighed and grabbed the notebook from Jiraiya and said, you are not putting my son in that damn book. Sarah walked up to Ino and said, honey, I need you to look after the shop for me. Ino said, why can't Dad? Sarah said, your dad is in the hospital Aegean and I got to go buy another broom. Ino burst out laughing and said, you used that Aegean, what did he do this time? Sarah said, he said I was not as thin as I was when I was younger, so I used that 1,000,000 years of broomstick jutsu you taught me. Everyone burst out laughing and Tsunade said, how did you learn that, Ino? I know they taught it after I created the first version for the pervert over here, but I say that's a new one. Ino said, from before Naruto taught me by trying it on me. I learned the 1,000 years of pain was used on him by Kakashi during the Bell test. I beat the hell out of him for that and made him learn about female anatomy from you in those books. Sarah said as she walked with them, I see you are not limping anymore. What happened anyways? Jiraiya, being the pervert he is, said, from my guess, her and Naruto acted like rabbits. Naruto said, I taught Ino that version but I created my own version. It involves a kunia, and exploding tag and 5 seconds. Our personal life is not your concern. Jiraiya paled and waved it off and said, everyone's personal life is my concern. I have my fans to think about. Naruto suddenly disappeared and reappeared behind Jiraiya and shoved a kunai up his butt with a flash tag instead of an exploding tag. Jiraiya sailed through the air and dissolved into rock as the tag exploded. The real Jiraiya landed beside Naruto and said, I give you a 8.5 on execution, but the landing I only give you a 6.9. Naruto sighed and said, I thought I would at least get a 9.0 on execution. Oh well, there's always next time. Everyone laughed and Ino said bye and Sarah went to the hospital. Aegean. 2 weeks have passed since Team 7 got back from Wave and Naruto had his date with Tenten. He had already signed the Toad contract as well as Slug to make Tsunade happy. He spent a lot of time getting to know his family better and hear about his dad and other relatives. Tsunade discovered never to bet against Naruto because he will win. Flashback. Naruto had just picked up his weapons from the Wolfclaw weapon shop and went back to the Kazama estates. News had done spread across town about his engagement to Ino, but no one knew how they found out since both Ino and Sakura had kept quiet. Naruto started practicing with his kunai and after an hour he was able to transport from each kunai as long as they were 100 feet apart or closer. Naruto then tried with the 10 original Hiraishin no Jutsu kunai and could not perform anything. He tried for about 4 hours with no results when Tsunade walked out and said, so how's it going, brat? Naruto said, not good. My kunai I design work like I used to, so I am confident in them, but they still eat too much chakra. I am working with the originals now but nothing works. Tsunade said, you dad was a genius and no one could figure it out. Just give up already. Naruto said, no, I won't give up because I will figure it out, it's a promise and I never go back on my word. Tsunade smiled and said, you are just wasting your time, kid. You just don't have what it takes to do it. Naruto got mad and said, you want to bet? Tsunade, not one to back down from a bet, said, sure, what's the odds? Naruto said, if I can perform the Hiraishin no Jutsu in 48 hours you have to give me that necklace. Tsunade thought for a moment and said, fine, but if I win you have to quit calling me old. Naruto said, deal, you old bag. Tsunade eye twitched as she left to go get some sake. 24 hours later Naruto had worked throughout the night and was exhausted and not figured out how to do it yet when he fell on the ground asleep. Shizune came out and picked him off the ground and took him inside the house. Naruto woke 12 hours later and ate real quick before going back out to work on it. Tsunade came out and said, give it up. You can't do it. Naruto said, what's the matter, you old bag? You scared I will do it? Tsunade sighed and said, I swear you are just like your dad was. Stubborn and proud. Naruto smiled and said, damn straight. He then stopped for a moment and looked at the kunai in his hand. After a moment he started laughing. Tsunade said, what's so funny? Naruto said, I am an idiot. I have been doing it wrong this whole time. I have been channeling my chakra into the kunai before throwing it and then force my chakra into my body to trigger it to work. Tsunade said, what does that have to do with anything? Naruto said, simple. The secret is a seal I just noticed. It's a storage seal, a simple storage seal. All you have to do is send enough chakra into the kunai to reach the storage seal. Once it's full, that's it. Once the kunai hits something and the storage seal is triggered. He then threw the kunai and when it hit the tree, a yellow and red flash appeared and Naruto was standing by the kunai. Tsunade said, how did you do that? Naruto said, it's a summon seal. Whoever's chakra is in the storage seal will be summoned when it is triggered. The user does not have to channel chakra into his or her body. It's all preset. Tsunade said, but that would mean that after the first time someone could just use chakra and use it. Naruto said, no, Fear is a signature seal hid in all the other. Mine have it also, so I recognize it. It is keyed to whoever channels chakra into it first. Anyone else's chakra will just pass by the storage seal. And you know what the best part is? I don't have to worry about chakra exhaustion Aegean because it's already in the Kunia. Well, I guess I won the bet. Tsunade smiled and hugged Naruto after giving him her necklace. Flashback end. He has also had several more dates with Tenten but laughs when he remember what happened. Flashback. Naruto and Tenten were in the park sharing a picnic lunch Naruto had made and were just talking when Sakura showed up and first thing she thought was he was cheating. She charged right up and said, "How can you be cheating on Ino after everything you've been through? It was just yesterday you both had. Are you just using her and then dropping her?" Naruto stood up and tried to say something when Sakura punched him in the face and stormed off to see Ino but not before turning to Tenten and said, as she left. Naruto sighed and said, "That girl has got to control her other personality." Tenten said, "So she suffers from MPD multiple personality disorder." Naruto nodded and said, "Yeah, one does all the talking and the other does all the action. That's how you can tell which is in charge." Tenten laughed and said, "So, at least she's not as bad as my teammate Lee." Naruto laughed and hanged into Lee and said, "Sakura my sweet, I will protect you with my life. Will you go out with me and spread the power of youth? And drop the henge?" Tenten was rolling on the ground laughing. She finally calmed down and said, "How do you know how Lee looks and sounds?" Naruto said, "Who doesn't, but he is okay if you can get him away from Guy. Neji though needs that stick removed from his. Fate this and fate that. I swear if he farts he would say fate decided it would happen." Tenten laughed Aegean and said, "You act like you know them your whole life as well as me but you may just barely know each other." "How is that?" Naruto sighed and said, "I learned how to read people a long time ago and I know a lot more about people than they think I do. When everyone ignores you they tell a lot without realizing you're there and hear it." Tenten smiled and saw a shooting star and said, "Make a wish." Naruto said, "I only have one wish. To protect all my friends and family and they all live a long happy life." Flashback end. It was a good date and they have had 2 more dates with Ino. Sakura told Tenten and Naruto she was sorry after she found out the truth. Currently Team 7 was on their way through Snow Country protecting Fujika's Yukie. The Hokage remember as well as Kakashi when Naruto mentioned she was the actual princess of Snow Country. They had already met the Nadir in battle and things went just like before. Naruto was standing on the tracks as the train that chased them through the tunnel stopped. Naruto knows what was fixing to happen and the people who will die quickly summoned Silga and said, "I want you to destroy the train before they attack." Silga blasts a stream of water out of her mouth that freezes when it hits the train stopping the doors from opening. She then goes and swipes the trail with one of her gaint paws knocking it off the track and down the hill. Naruto then releases her and watches as men exit the train and run. He then hears a scream behind him and sees Yukie already in the airship and can't reach her this time. Naruto quickly starts running on the ground following the airship. Kakashi screamed for him to stop but it fell on deaf ears. Kakashi said, "Well, we don't have a choice. We will have to track Naruto later. For now let's get you all to safety. We will then go after Naruto and save the princess. They won't kill her while I have this." As he holds out the hexagon crystal. Naruto was running through the woods by treetop following the airship as it took Yukie away. He travels for several hours and the airship slowly get further away every minute. Every moment feel that fate of his one-time friend is slipping away. After running to the point of exhaustion, he finally sees the airship land at a castle. Naruto decided to rest a little while as he collapses from exhaustion of staying warm, summoning and chasing after the airship for several in snow-covered trees. Naruto awoke to a little pug dog named Puckin sitting on his chest. Puckin said, "He is finally awake, Kakashi," before he disappears as a puff of smoke. Kakashi sighs and said, "You're lucky we found you or you might have died, Naruto." Sakura walked over and hit him and said, "I don't want to have to tell Ino that you died for being stupid." Sasuke just HMPED in his usual attitude. Naruto said, "Sorry for worrying you. I tracked them to that castle west of here. The airship landed before I passed out." Kakashi nodded and said, "Okay, here's the plan. Naruto, you and Sakura are to come in from the east side of the castle quietly and try to find and rescue the princess. Sasuke and I will cause a distraction at the front gate." With that, the two teams split. Naruto and Sakura made it to the east side of the castle and looked for any way to get in. Naruto looked up and saw a window about 400 feet up and the entire wall was covered in ice. Naruto looked at Sakura and said, "I can get us in, but you want like how, and you will have to trust me." Sakura said, "I trust you. So how do we get it?" Naruto shape-shifted into his true form and his nails grew and his tail appeared. Naruto grabbed Sakura with 5 of his tails and jab a clawed hand into the ice. He repeated this again and again, slowly making it up the wall. Sakura, not liking being carried like this with one tail per arm and leg and another around her waist, started to squirm. Naruto stops his climb and whispers, "Please stop moving or I might drop you." Sakura stopped and they continued up the wall. Once they made it to the window, they climbed in and Naruto changed back to look normal. Sakura used her radio and said, "We're inside, starting to look now," and they started to search. Sasuke and Kakashi were chasing 2 women across the bridge. Kakashi grabbed one woman and pinned her to the castle wall and started to grab at her cloths while Sasuke did the same to the other. Both women screamed for help. A pair of snow ninja appeared and grabbed Sasuke and Kakashi away from the girls and punched both while the women continued to scream. When the punches hit both, Sasuke and Kakashi disappeared and the 2 snow ninja collapsed from being hit from behind as the 2 women change into the real Sasuke and Kakashi. Sasuke looked at Kakashi and said, "I can't believe you made me do that." Kakashi said, "At least now you could say you know what it's like to feel like a woman. You still can't say you've been with one though. That will be next time." And they both went inside the castle. Naruto never did like just looking, decided the frontalalt would be better and created 100 cage bunshin and had half henge into Sakura and start looking for Yukie. Kakashi and Sasuke were heading down some stairs when Naruto and Sakura came running by them and Naruto said, "Not down there." Kakashi stopped and then they came back by and said, "Not up there." A few minutes later another set came out of a hallway and said, "Not down the hall." Suddenly 10 pairs of Naruto and Sakura appeared at the same time and said, "Any luck?" and looked at Kakashi and Sasuke and said together, "Don't just stand there, help us find her." Together at the same time. Sasuke grabs his hair in his hands and starts pulling out chunks of hair before grabbing a kunai and starts destroying all the pairs, screaming, "Who's your daddy? Who's the bitch now? Die little whore. Can you feel it, huh? Huh." Kakashi sweat drops and slowly backs away. Naruto stopped in his tracks and Sakura said, "What's wrong?" Naruto said, "Sasuke is ed up. He is killing all my clones and saying some crazy stuff." Sakura said, "You already told me Sasuke screwed up, what's new?" Sasuke came running around the corner without his pants screaming, "You want some of this?" A huge door opens into the hallway and Dato looks out to see what's going on and Sasuke screamed, "Oh, here another bitch for big Sasuke pimp mobile." and then charges at Dato. Dato runs and hides behind Yukie. Sasuke said, "She not my type," and grabs Yukie and throws her into the air. Kakashi appears and catches her but drops the hexagon crystal. Dato sees it and runs and bends over to grab it. Sasuke appeared behind him and said, "I knew you would like this." Dato rolled to the side to get away and kicked Sasuke in the nuts. Sasuke fell to the floor and said, "If you wanted to go first, you just had to ask," before he fell to the floor asleep. Dato got up and ran out of the room for his life. Naruto, who saw this, ran after him only to hear Sasuke say something that stopped him in his tracks. "Get away from him, Ino. He's my man, not yours." Naruto ran over to Sasuke and drawed back and field goal kicked him as hard as he could, and Sasuke flew across the room and hit a wall. Kakashi saw this and said, "I would have went for the 2-point conversion." Naruto turned and ran after Dato. Sakura walked over to Kakashi and said, "What the hell happened?" Kakashi said, "I think we broke him somehow and we don't have a warranty." Sakura said, "Do you think we can fix him?" Kakashi said, "I don't have any duct tape." Naruto was chasing Dato down the hall and was catching up but not fast enough. He quickly summoned 2 medium-sized two-tail foxes that were running with him. Naruto said, "The man ahead of me I am chasing, I need you to catch and stop him for me." The 2 foxes charged after Dato and each bit into his leg's hamstrings to stop him. Naruto appeared above him with a Rasengan and drove it into his back since he was face down. Dato died from the attic. Naruto grabbed the crystal and walked back to the others. Sasuke stirred a moment later with a smile on his face and said, "I had a great dream." He tried to stand up and felt hurt and sore. He then looked around and said, "I guess it was not a dream." He then looked off into space dreamily. He then said, "I wonder if it was as good for Naruto as it was for me." Naruto, who had walked into the room a few seconds before, heard that and quickly grabbed the closest female, who happened to be Yukie, and started rocking back and forward. Yukie, who was also terrified of Sasuke, now just comforted Naruto. 1 week later, back in Konoha at the Kazama estate in Naruto bedroom. Ino walked in and saw Naruto rocking back and forward and some beautiful woman holding him. Ino said, "Can I ask why you are holding Naruto like that?" Yukie said, "He suffered extreme emotional shock on his mission. His job was to protect me from my uncle, which he did. His teammate Sasuke went nuts and caused this. He won't let me get farther than 5 feet away before going into shock." Ino sighed and said, "I think I can help him, but you will have to hold him." Yukie said, "I don't mind. He's a nice and cute guy. Are you his sister?" Ino laughed and said, "I will tell you after I get out of his mind." Team 7 had been put on temporary medical leave, with 2 members having mental breakdowns. The week flew by and a lot of things happened. The Hokage finally agreed to let Tsunade start her 4-man team with a medics, as she has currently started teaching all female ninja under the age of 25 medical skills. Shizune had been spending most of her time helping Naruto with the last of the dependency he grew while in Snow Country. Mostly it was getting to know the real Naruto, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams, and they made an agreement not to look at his and Ino other life experiences since they were young Aegean, but create new ones here. It took a few days, but after they spent time together, Shizune, Jiraiya, and Tsunade noticed that Naruto still kept a emotions mask on. They finally got him to break it with help from his future wives. Naruto was currently in his family library reading when Shizune came in to see him. She sat down beside him and said, "So, what are you reading?" Naruto said, "I was reading one of the first scrolls on the Jutsu growth and Mokuden Haijutsu, Jukai Koden would release secret technique, birth of dense woodland." I wanted to try and see if I might be able to do it because of something that happened once. Shizune said, "You know I am proud of you." Naruto stopped reading and looked at her and said, "Thanks, Mom. That means a lot to me." Shizune said, "So you want to go outside and try those jutsu?" Naruto nodded and rolled up the scroll and headed outside. Once they made it to the backyard, he performed the hand seals for growth and tried it, but nothing happened. He tried Aegean and the same. Shizune walked over and said, "Why don't you try what happened before and see if it worked?" Naruto knelt down and put his hand on a small tree and channeled chakra into it and said growth. The tree started growing bigger and taller. It kept growing until Naruto stopped. Shizune ran over to him and said, "We got to show Tsunade." She then ran inside and a few moments later Shizune and Tsunade both came out. When they got out, Tsunade said, "What's so important?" Naruto walked to another small tree and repeated what he did and the tree grew Aegean. Tsunade fell on her but and looked at Naruto and said, "Looks like you have some of grandfather's bloodline." Naruto smiled and said, "I only can do it like this and it's different than what was on the scroll." Tsunade said, "Perhaps you will have to do it different or perhaps someone forgot to include something in the scroll. Anyways, good job, brat." Tsunade and Jiraiya wedding was a small affair. Flashback. The third was standing in the backyard of the Kazama household. The wedding was not a big affair. The only people present besides the bride and groom was Shizune, Naruto, Ino, Tenten, Inoichi, Sarah, Dustin, Yukie, Sakura, and Kakashi. The third said, "Dearly beloved, we are." Tsunade said, "This damn dress is hot, so just cut to the chase." The third sighed and said, "Do you, Tsunade, take?" Tsunade said, "Yes." Jiraiya said, "Don't ask, you already know I said yes." The third said, "Then I pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Kazama. You may kiss the bride." Jiraiya and Tsunade kissed and he grabbed Harem. She sent him sailing through the air. Kakashi said, "So why did he take? They both take the Kazama name." Naruto said, "She told me it's because the first and second erase all traces of our family real last name for protection, and since they both came up with the name Kazama for dad when they hid him in the orphanage to protect him from their enemies, they decided to both take it in memory of him." Kakashi smiled and said, "Makes sense, so which of you are catching the flowers?" The girls got into a pretty big fight between Sakura, Ino, Yukie, and Tenten. Somehow weapons and ninjutsu got involved and the flowers got destroyed in the fight. Flashback end. Yukie had decided to stay in Konoha because Snow Country just brought up too many memories for now. She is still the princess, but she let her personal guard and best friend who made her return run the country for now since he knows the condition there better than her. She did start the spring for her home country and they rejoiced and accepted her request to be an official diplomat to her country and Konoha. Ino and Tenten both got closer and helped Yukie adjust to Konoha life better. Ino had requested from her family to let her move in with Naruto and they agreed for different reasons. Her mom agreed because her little girl was all grown up and wanted to live in the world on her own. Her dad agreed so the chance of Ino teaching her mom another jutsu like the broom handle were slim. Tenten dad was not going to allow it, but after a little persuasion he agreed. Flashback. Dustin stood with his arms crossed and said, "I am not going to allow it until you are married." Tsunade and Jiraiya, who came by to make a surprise order for Naruto, saw this and Tsunade said, "What if I counter you that Tenten will be marrying Naruto?" Dustin said, "How can you ensure that?" Jiraiya said, "That was what we came to see you about today. As the current head of the Kazama family, we wanted to go ahead and have you make some custom wedding rings for us with the Harishin engraved into it. We need 4 rings made and on the top of the rings we need the Kazama clan symbol engraved." Dustin said, I still don't follow, and why 4 inches? Tsunade said. The surprise is after the Chunin exam. Naruto, Ino, Tenten if she wants to, and Yukie if she wants to will be getting married. The council has already started to push since someone spotted Naruto using his bloodline. They want heirs as fast as possible, so they are forcing it. As for the last ring, they already heard about Ino not able to have kids and said he would have to find at least one more or they will. He has 2 years to find one. Dustin said. What bloodline does he have? Tsunade said. The first's wood manipulation ability. Dustin sighed and said, well, you said you wanted to date him and I will support you either way, so what do you want? Tenten said, I want to marry him, Dad. He's a great guy from everything I can tell. Dustin said, very well, I support you, daughter, and I know your mom would also if she was alive. I guess that means I need to hire a new helper since you won't be coming by. Tenten said, why's that? Just because I am getting married and someday have kids don't mean I can't still help you. Jiraiya said, also I wanted to inform you as we are going to inform the Yamenko flower shop if either of you need any help, physically or economically we will help you out since we are all family so our legacy will have proud and strong families. Dustin smiled and said, so what you waiting for, Tenten? I am not getting any younger. Everyone laughed. Flashback end. Ino took the room beside Naruto's on the left, Tenten on the right, and Yukie, since she was new and did not have a place to stay, took the room across the hall from Naruto. The entire family lived as the west wing of the house. The east side Shizune and Tsunade turned into classrooms for medical training. Because of Team 7 being down, Team 9, Guy's team took the mission to Tea Country. Ino told Tenten she would take care of Naruto for her while she was gone. Sakura had her first run-in with them. Flashback. Tenten was in classroom at the Kazama house with Hinata, Sakura, and Ino, based on age and ranks. Suddenly a shout of, dynamic entry, was heard and the door to the room was busted of the hinges and Guy was standing there and said, oh my beautiful student Tenten. We have a most youthful mission for the Hokage. Meet at the south gate in an hour. Suddenly a carbon copy of Guy came in and said, Gia-sensei. I was able to inform Neji about our youthful mission. And they both hug and a sunset with ocean appeared in the background. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. They finally broke apart and shout of, dynamic exit, and Guy was gone. Tsunade came to see what was up and screamed, Guy, you're paying for that door. Lee started to leave but he saw Sakura and went over to her and said, what is your name? Sakura said, Sakura. Lee said, oh, a beautiful name for a beautiful goddess. Sakura, my sweet, I will protect you with my life. Will you go out with me and spread the power of youth? Tenten started rolling on the floor laughing and said, I can't believe it, word for word. Naruto said Lee would do that word for word. Sakura freaked and said, get a haircut and shave those eyebrows and get a new outfit that not spandex. Lee then shouted, yes, I will do this, and if I still cannot get Sakura to go out with me I shall shave all my hair off and run 100 laps around Konoha. If I cannot do that then I will. Tenten said, Lee, the mission. Lee screamed, yes, can't be late for the power of youth. And then he left. Tenten right behind him. Sakura looked at Ino and said, is that the Lee you told me about? Ino nodded and Sakura said, where do they keep the sake in this place? Hinata giggled and finally composed herself as both girls looked at her. Ino decided to have a sisterly talk. She said, Hinata, are you mad that I am with Naruto as well as Yukie and Tenten? Hinata started putting her fingers together and said, why would I be? Ino said, you had a crush on him for years. Hinata said, who told you? Ino said, it easy to pick up. I want you to actually think before answering this next question. Tell me, Hinata, do you love Naruto as a person, or is it because he inspires you to be more than you are, with his self-confidence and never back down or go back on his word? Hinata though for a moment and said, since I don't actually talk to him much, I don't really know him as a person. I do see him as everything else you said. Why? Ino said, Naruto explained this to me and Sakura and is planning on it also, so I will save him from doing it. Hinata, you look at him as a big brother, not a boyfriend or lover. You do have those thoughts, but you force yourself to do it, and that's why you faint around him. You respect him for showing you how you should live since your family makes it hard. Naruto is actually smarter than people think. He told me about why he never said anything before now. Hinata was looking down and said, why? Is it because I am too weak? Naruto, who was standing at the door, said, no, it's because my little sister. I talked to your dad back when I first noticed the crush and he asked me to try and be a role model for you. Your family council had your dad over a barrel and still does. I hope to help with that, but I don't have the power right now. The cage bird seal. Your dad is afraid the council will put it on you or your sister. By all rights, Hanabi should have had it put on her at the age of 3, but since your father has made you think you are weaker than you are, he has sat the council where they can't put it on either. I agreed to be your role model because I always felt you were like a little sister. That's why I ignored the crush you had on me and acted like an idiot over it. Do you understand? Hinata thought for a moment and said, so the love I have for you is a brotherly love. Naruto said, yeah, if it was not, then you would not have to force your mind and body to fight each other, which causes you to faint. When you find your one true love, it won't matter what is wrong in the world. All that matters is you and that person. You can actually be you and not what people think you are. Hinata smiled and said, I understand. When did you get so wise, brother? Naruto said, damn it, just because I am an idiot when it comes to books does not mean I am not smart the rest of the time. And he stormed off with everyone else laughing. Flashback end. Sasuke was still in Ibiki office with Anko after a week. Ibiki had already been put on medical leave for emotional stress. Anko sighed and went to the Hokage. When Anko arrived, the third said, so is there anything that can be done for him? Anko said, I can only think of one thing to do, but you would have to find someone willing to do it. The third said, in this village I don't think that would be a problem. What is it? Anko said, basically the only thing I could think is for someone to him. If his brain is stuck as being an emo, then either he needs a woman's touch or you can kiss the Sharingan bye-bye. The third said, I will see what I can do. Any particular type of woman you would suggest? Anko though for a moment and said, I would say someone into bondage because he is going to have to be chained down for it to work. The third thought and said, very well. I will consider it. Dismissed. The third looked at Kakashi and said, so what do you think, Kakashi? Kakashi thought for a moment and said, I think you should just have Anoich go in and block the memories of everything that happened from entering the castle to now. The third said, I agree. That's better than any other options. Now let's see what Kakashi really was thinking. Sasuke was currently on a table and had both his arms tied to the side and his legs tied also. He had a gag over his mouth so he could not speak. He was in a solid white room with fluorescent lights. The door opened and a woman with 2 red tattoos on her face walked in with a backpack. The woman said, my name is Amelia. I was sent here to re-educate your mind and body in the ways of women. And with that she reached into her bag and pulled out a horse whip. Smack. Smack smack. Smack smack smack. Sasuke's Sharingan appeared for the first time. Amelia said, so I see you got your eyes now and remember everything. That's good. She then proceeded to strip and have her way with him. Every time he tried to protest he go wiped Aegean. If he did not do what she said another whip. 3 hours later Amelia came out of the room and said, well I done all I can do. He has the second level of the Sharingan now so that's good. If you ever need me again you know where to find me. And with that she left. A few minutes later Sasuke came out and saw Kakashi standing there and said, I want to go home now. Kakashi said, how do you feel? Sasuke looked at Kakashi and flashed his Sharingan and said, I feel like a man. Kakashi smiled. End of Kakashi Fantasy. It had been a week since Naruto first learned he does possess a little of the wood element. He has been practicing the only two wood elemental jutsu in the house and can perform both but not very good, and he had to actually be touching the trees for it to work, so it won't be very useful in battle, but it would help with prisoners. Even though Ino and Yukie had moved in he has not gotten to see them very much. The third allowed Yukie to start teaching etiquette to first-year female students at the academy. This is on top of her bi-monthly council meetings she has with the other foreign allied country diplomats with the village council, so she is gone a lot. Ino has also been hard to get see. Her family has still had her working at her family shop with the new inventory. Flashback. Tsunade was looking at the ground of the Kazama estate and Ino had just returned from working at her family shop and Tsunade said, Ino, can I have a word with you? Ino stopped and said, yes Tsunade-sama. Tsunade sighed and said, Ino, how many times do I have to tell you since you are going to be family soon you can just call me Nekken so I won't feel so old. Anyways. How would your flower shop like some of the rare breeds we have growing here at Out Compound? I need someone to work on the gardens and I really don't want to hire a gardener. You know how much Naruto likes his privacy. Ino said, I know and that's one of the reasons I love him, but yeah I can work on the gardens here and use the flowers for the flower shop. Nekken soon smiled and said, just tell your parents they can keep the profits and if they ever need any help to let us know because our family is not well known for it but we have enough money in accounts to buy almost all of Fire Country but unlike other clans we don't flaunt it. I want you to make sure all our descendants know this. Ino smiled a sad smile and said, you can count on me. Oh before I forget, if you see Naruto before I do, my dad went in and put a buffer seal around Sasuke memories of what happened in the council and has been returned to active duty starting in 2 days. Poor dad had an episode like Naruto did when he came out and would not let go of mom for anything. I just wished I would have thought of the cure for Naruto like mom did for dad. Tsunade, not missing a chance to learn some new medical treatment, said, so tell me what is this cure she came up with? Ino laughed and looked straight in Tsunade's eyes and said, she screwed him. They both laughed. Flashback end. Team 9 had just walked into the village gates very tired. Gia said, I want all of you to go to the hospital and get a physical and checked out. You showed your youthfulness on this mission. I am proud and decided to allow you to enter the Chunin exams next week. Until then you are all free. And he went to the Hokage office. Lee said as they all left for the hospital, I still can't believe that unyouthful man had the legendary Raijin sword. Tenten said, I know, I still can't believe what you did Neji. Neji said coldly, it was fated to happen. Flashback. Idate was on the ground panting as the missing leaf ninja stood over him preparing to kill him with the Raijin sword when Tenten threw a kunai at his legs forcing him to jump into the air. Lee appeared behind him and kicked him even higher and proceeded to use the leaf shadow dance on him. The nin used the speed from the attack to swing himself on a tree branch to fly back into the air for a soft landing on the ground. Neji appeared under him and got into the gentle fist position and attempted to close of his chakra holes but missed the ones in his right leg and instead shut of chakra to his crotch. Guy appeared after dealing with the other 3 ninja and did the only youthful thing. He gave him a quick death. Flashback end. Tenten laughed and said, Fate you missed and that the whole point. Lee said, Tenten that is most unyouthful of you. Though that does bring me to ask you a question. What made you quit being a member of Neji fan club? Tenten blushed and said, I met a better man who actually appreciates me and is from a loving family that is growing. Neji said, if what you say is true then fate was kind to you. Lee getting the wrong idea started screaming as he said, oh I did not you had done such unyouthful things Tenten. To be with child already. I must defeat this man that would deflower such a youthful person. If I cannot defeat him I shall punch a log 1,000 times. If I cannot do that I shall walk around the village on my hands 10 times. And he took off forgetting about going to the hospital. Tenten put her hand to her face and said, why me? Neji said, because fate wanted to be cruel. Tenten became enraged and said, that's it. Where the hell is it? Neji said, where is what? Tenten with a twitch said, that damn fate Kunia that is up you. Neji said, I don't know what you are talking about, and entered the hospital. Tenten followed him and walked up to the nurse's desk and said, our sensei sent us here for a physical. Just then Lee came barging into the hospital screaming, Tenten, where are you? He then saw her and said, Tenten, tell me the name of the unyouthful man you are seeing. Tenten said, Lee stop. I am seeing Naruto Kazama. Quote, Lee said, yes, I will go and beat Naruto for deflowering a youthful girl like you, and took off. The nurse said, so you need a physical and a pregnancy test. Right this way. And started to leave not noticing the twitch Tenten had. Lee ran from the hospital searching for this Naruto Kazama who Tenten was with and remembered that he met Sakura at the Kazama household and ran there. Naruto was working on Hiraishin no Jutsu without a Kunia with only a marker he could place on an object. Currently he was trying it with a two-tail fox summon having it run around the house and him flashing to the position. Jiraiya said, you are doing great kid. Naruto said, thanks Ero Sanin. I am glad you helped me come up with this idea. It helps to just slip that small seal paper on a moving object and bam it works. Jiraiya drank a little sake and said, you plan on using it on him during the test. Naruto said, yeah but I don't know if I can beat him there. I wish I could try this in actual combat before then but I don't know anyone beside you and Granny who's fast enough to match his speed. A fist connected to Naruto's face and he went flying toward a tree and it broke from the force. Naruto slowly got up and saw Lee and said, what the hell was that for? Lee got into the iron fist style and said, you know what you did to her you most unyouthful person. And he charged Naruto and attacked with a leaf whirlwind. Naruto ducked and slapped a Hiraishin seal on Lee's back and backflipped away. Naruto stopped and said, I don't know what you are talking about. Lee said, you really are unyouthful to lie like that. She told me herself. And charged Naruto. Naruto sighed and used Hiraishin to appear behind Lee and punch him. Lee landed and said, I see you are a master of speed. You leave me no choice. First gate. Kia. Second gate. Kia. Naruto was thinking oh shit. Third gate. Kia, and then Lee disappeared. Naruto not wanting to get hit start flashing behind Lee constantly to avoid being hit. Several ninja felt the chakra from the gates opening and came running including Tsunade, Shizune, the Hokage, Tenten, Ino who was taking a nap and Kakashi. They all landed by Jiraiya and the Hokage asked, what's going on? Suddenly, fourth gate. Kia, and Kakashi pulled up his forehead protector and said, damn, they are moving, if I did not know better I would swear Naruto was using Hiraishin no Jutsu. Jiraiya said, he is. That boy in green came and said something about Naruto doing something to some girl and attacked Naruto. Tenten finally had enough and screamed, damn it Lee, I have not ed Naruto yet, so stop. Lee and Naruto both stopped and looked at Tenten. Jiraiya started writing. Everyone else was looking at Tenten right when Guy arrived and said, Tenten, you should not go around telling everyone about your unyouthful plans. Ino, who was in front of Guy, ducked as Tenten flew over her to get to Guy and put her hands around his neck trying to strangle him, screaming, I will show you the power of youth. Shikamaru walked in to deliver a message to Ino, saw the situation and said, troublesome women and their monthly hormones. Twitch, 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 twitch. Shikamaru suddenly found himself on the receiving end of 4 women beatdown. Naruto walked over with the now collapsed Lee and handed him to a still blue in the face Guy. He said, I think he pulled a bunch of muscles from opening the gates. Arrow Sanin 200 back to back is my limit. And then he fell face first into Kakashi's arms, who caught him. Everyone stopped when he collapsed and Tsunade and Shizune started taking care of Naruto and Lee. The third sighed and said, I am getting too old for this shit. At least the paperwork's done for the day. Shizune, after forcing a soldier pill into Naruto, picked him up with Tenten and Ino help and took him inside. Tsunade finished healing Lee and said, Guy, if I find out you teach anyone else how to open those damn gates, I will implant you into the Hokage Mountain. The third walked over and said, Guy's team recovered some of your stolen property on their last mission. He then handed her the Raijin and left. Tsunade sighed and said, well, I wonder what to do with you, as she walked into the house. Jiraiya finished writing in his notepad and Kakashi said, so is that for the next in the series? Jiraiya said, nope, I decided to start a new series based on Naruto and his little harem. It's going to be called Adventures of an Heir Volume 2. Volume 1 should be released tomorrow, but here you go. An advance copy. As he handed a new book to Kakashi. Kakashi giggled and left as he started to read. Yukie returned home from the academy and was going to her room when she saw the door to Naruto's room open and went to see him. When she got there, she saw Ino and Tenten striping Naruto out of his dirty clothes as he was semi-awake. Yukie said, what's going on? Ino said, Tenten teammate misunderstood something and attacked Naruto. Yukie said, is he going to be okay? Tenten said, yes, he just a little tired from it, so we were getting him out of these cloths so he could sleep. Yukie smiled and said, when you're both done, can I talk to you both in my room? After both girls put him to bed, they went to Yuki's room. Yukie was sitting at the head of her bed and both girls sat down at the foot of it. Ino said, so what did you want to talk about? Yukie said, I thought about what you said, Ino, about marrying Naruto and have kids, and I like the idea, but I got a few questions that might be personal before I completely agree. Tenten said, I also do, so I want to see if either of you know. Ino said, well, I hope I can answer them or any of us, so ask. Yukie said, why can't you have kids, Ino? Something's not right, because I noticed when you were moving in you had certain hygienic products. Ino sighed and said, I guess I might as well tell the truth to you both. I was hoping that it would not come to this, but you both have a right to know. Tenten said, what are you talking about, Ino? I have known you for years, but you act like I don't know anything. Ino said, the truth is, me and Naruto are not exactly what we appear. We both had to make a choice, and now we have to live with that choice. As far as I know, the third, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Shizune, Sakura, Guy, Asuma, Kakashi, Yamato, my parent and Kurenai are the only ones who know. This is a huge village secret. Understand? Yukie said, am I allowed to hear this then? Ino said, I suppose for everything you done for us you do. Yukie said, what do you mean? I have not done anything. Ino said, not yet at least. You see the choice Naruto and I made allowed us to come back from almost 13 years in the future. A lot of stuff is going to go down and a lot of people will die, so we came back to change certain events. Tenten said, I find that hard to believe. Do you have any proof? Ino said, I suppose it would be best if I showed you the price Naruto and I made and then explain it so you can know it's the truth. She then shape-shifted. Her two tails appeared and her nails and teeth grew. Yukie scooted away a little and said, what happened? Ino changed back and said, it all started when the Kyuubi attacked our village 12 years ago. Naruto father the fourth Hokage gave his life to seal Kyuubi into Naruto. The third for Naruto protection told all his family that's here now he died during the attack instead of the truth. Naruto grew up hated and abused. After the stuff that is going to happen happened, the Kyuubi told Naruto about a way to change everything. Kyuubi made he sent to a different dimension after another demon nearly killed her, so she was basically frozen in time. The Kyuubi said he would give his and his mate's life to send me and him back. But in return I would become the new two-tail lord of the cats and Naruto would become the new nine-tail lord of foxes and king of demons. And before you ask, we are not evil. We are the same people we always were. Tenten said, so both of you are demons? No, but what does that have to do with having kids? Ino said, because of the choice if and when we have children they would have to live in the other realm called Makia. You see, we have both become basically immortal and can't have mortal children, so I have to use a demon birth control until we go to the other world in about 70 or 80 years. Yukie said, so you need regular humans to have kids to live here for you and then we just get left behind while you live in another world. Ino said, no, see Naruto found this out after we came back. When people die here they go to the other world and Naruto is basically the Hokage of a village there. He can request certain people and he wants to request all his friends and family to live there with us for eternity. Tenten said, so when we die we go to the other place and live Aegean with all our friends and family. Ino said, yes, and when any children finally die they join us as well. Tenten thought for a moment and said, that don't sound so bad, so why go through all the trouble of trying to change things? Ino said, we still want to live lives and memories here and make new friends. If everyone dies in the next 12 years a lot of possible children and friends would be lost. Yukie said, I understand. I thought you were just wanting to use us, but I see you actually care and want people to live long and happy lives. Ino smiled and said, yes. Tenten said, so I guess I am still in. I admit I don't know everything about you and Naruto now, but looks like I got a long time to find out. One way or another. Yukie smiled and said, why not? I don't have really anything to lose but time. So what happens that you want to change? Ino said, well, the first thing is the Chunin exams. And so Ino told them both about the things to come. After the depressing thing, Tenten said, I just thought of something. You have two tails and you say Naruto is the new nine tails, so does he actually have them? Ino laughed and said, yes, and they are cute. The three girls who are still panting looked over at the real Naruto as he dispels the clones. Ino, who finally caught her breath, said, where the hell that come from? Naruto smiles and said, that was a sample of what I have been planning for our wedding night. Tenten said, screw the wedding night. If that is a sample I can't wait till we try the main course. Everyone looked at Yukie and her eyes are fluttering from the pleasure she just experienced. After a few minutes she calms down enough and said, any doubt I had about being in love with you is gone now. Naruto leaned over and kissed each woman passionately, even though his lips are sore. Tenten looked at Ino and said, What were those seals you did before we started? Ino said, sound barrier. Everyone laughed and Ino said, when I first was with Naruto I used that birth control I told you about, so please don't tell anyone anything I told you. Both girls nodded and Naruto said, so how do you feel about me and Ino now? Tenten said, I feel okay with it but I don't think I can walk for a while. Ino laughed and said, I had the same problem until Tsunade healed me. Yukie said, I think I will worry about walking tomorrow. For now I am going to sleep right here. Everyone laughed and agreed to share the bed. Naruto got in the middle and Tenten rested her head on his left shoulder. Yukie on the right and Ino got on top of him and laid on his chest while wrapping an arm around the other two girls. The next day Naruto got up after replacing himself with a clone as he took a shower and got dressed for breakfast. By the time he exited his bathroom the girls had finally started to stir. Naruto quickly went downstairs and made rice for everyone. Tsunade and Shizune walked in and sat at the table drinking some coffee. Jiraiya was still asleep. Ino walked in and gave Naruto a peck on the cheek before taking a bowl of rice and sitting down. A few minutes late Yukie and Tenten both came limping in helping each other. Shizune shot Naruto a questioning look while Tsunade banged her head on the table. Tsunade then got up and started helping Tenten by healing her legs and stomach. She then started on Yukie's legs and then went to her stomach and started but stopped after a second. She then went through some seals and went to Yuki's stomach again and looked at Shizune before walking over to Naruto and hitting him on the back of the head. Naruto turned and looked at her and said, "What was that for you, old bag?" Tsunade said, "Well, Pops, I just wanted to make sure I got your attention." Naruto said, "You could have just said my name, and did you just say?" Everyone had stopped and was watching them and Ino said, "Why did she call Naruto Pops?" Tsunade said, "Well, Mr. Jack Rabbit here has one of you pregnant." All three girls looked at each other and said together, "Who?" Shizune said, "My guess would be Yukie. That why Tsunade ran a scan on her. Am I right?" Tsunade said, "Yeah, it's just starting but her chakra flow is already being diverted to her stomach." Yukie sat down and said, "I am going to be a mom." Naruto walked over to her and knelt in front of her and hugged her and said, "It is going to be all right. I am here for you." Ino walked over and said, "Me too." Tenten nodded and said, "We're family, now more than ever." Yukie said, "But we're not married yet." Naruto said, "Family is not always by blood or law. And if you're worried about that, we can go ahead and move the wedding up. A few days won't matter much. If it's alright with all of you, that is." Both girls said it was okay and Tsunade said, "Well, I will go tell Sensei we're having the wedding this afternoon and you can all go tell anyone you want to be at the wedding to be here at 3 today." Ino and Tenten both nodded and Naruto said, "The only people I care to be here for it would be the rookie 9 minus Sasuke, all the senseis, and Iruka, Zabuza and Haku and your family. I am going to stay here and take care of Yukie till you get back. Don't tell anyone about the pregnancy though." Both girls left and Tsunade went to inform the Hokage. Naruto almost never left Yukie's side. He pampered her every way he could to make her not worry about anything. When Naruto left the front room to go get Yukie a glass of tea, Shizune sat beside her and laughed. Yukie looked at her and said, "What's so funny?" Shizune said, "Naruto reminds me so much of his father, it's not funny. He was the same way when I first found out I was pregnant with him." Yukie said, "What was Naruto dad like?" Shizune thought for a moment and said, "Look at Naruto, at his courage and pride and his protectiveness. Think about the love you received from him, and that is the same as it was for his father." Yukie smiled and Naruto walked back into the room. He had just sat down beside Yukie when a knock came to the front door. Shizune got up and opened the door and came back a moment later and said, "Naruto. There are some people here to see you." Naruto was confused but got up and looked through the peephole to see who was there. He turned around and said, "Mom, take Yukie and leave the house for a while. If you see anyone who's supposed to be here for the wedding, stop them and tell them to go to the Hokage office and wait for me. Don't let anyone come here. Do you understand?" Shizune heard the warning in his voice and said, "Is everything going to be okay?" Naruto said, "As long as I deal with them alone for now. Please do this for me and hurry." Shizune grabbed Yuki's hand and left through the kitchen door. Naruto turned and opened the door and said, "Enter," before turning and walking into the living room with his back to the guest. The short one said, "Are you Naruto?" Naruto said, "First are you Vessel or the raccoon?" with his back still to them. Gaara said, "I am the Vessel." Naruto said, "Good, have you told anyone about this? Know that I will find out the truth before you leave this house." Temari said, "What makes you think you can stand up to us?" Naruto shape-shifted and forced his demon chakra into his eyes and turned to look at them, releasing a massive amount of killer intent toward them and said, "Because I am the new nine-tailed demon lord, king of all the tailed beast, and I am more powerful than you can imagine." The three sand sibs fell to their knees trembling. Even Gaara, because Shukaku was trying to get further into his cage away from the being in front of him. Naruto stopped the killer intent and said, "So answer me truthfully or I won't be merciful. Did you tell anyone about what you were told?" Gaara said, "No, I told them both. If they did, I would kill them." Naruto nodded and said, "Gaara, I want you to give the raccoon control for a few moments. I want to talk to him. Do not worry. He won't harm anyone or eat your soul. I will destroy him if he tries." Gaara used the force sleep and Shukaku tool over and said, "Who are you, Lord, and what happened to the old Kyuubi?" Naruto said, "The old Kyuubi and Nibi have both gone to the other side forever to enjoy eternity. He bestowed on me and someone I know who came back, but I won't tell you their powers because I proved myself worthy of it." Shukaku said, "I heard he was sealed into a child. Are you him?" Naruto said, "Do not think I am weak. What you felt before was not even half a tale of my power. And yes, I once was that child. I am far older than I appear. You know the benefits of what I became and you know what can happen if the new lord so chooses." Shukaku said, "So how old are you, Lord, and why come back?" Naruto said, "I am 26 by human standards, but this body is but half that. I came back because this world was in ruin by the greed of mortal men who tried to use our power as their own. You, Sibi, who is impersonating her sister for safety, Sanbi, Yanbi, Gobi, Rokubi, Shichibi, and Hachibi were all captured and sealed in the idol of Yoroi Sasori body armor Scorpion." Shukaku hissed and said, "We should have destroyed that creature when we had the chance." Naruto said, "It's too late for that. I have a plan to stop this, but it will come at a cost." Temari said, "What is it that you are talking about?" Naruto said, "What I am planning is something that must be done. The reason it worked the first time for our enemy is because all the tail beast but two are sealed in objects or people right now and are too weak to defend themselves properly." Shukaku said, "So you are going to free us, Lord?" Naruto said, "In a sense yes, but not the way you think. I want you to do the same thing Kyuubi and Nibi did and make Gaara the new one-tailed demon. In doing this you return to Makia in your normal body and not your demon body and will be acting ruler of your domain until Gaara returns after he either is killed or goes there in 60 to 80 years. Shukaku said, "But Lord, is there no other way? I like the taste of these human blood." Naruto said, "Silence, you do not have a choice. It is either do this or be trapped in that idol for eternity. Shukaku bowed his head and said, "It will be done, Lord. It will take till sunrise to do it. After that I shall be gone and this boy will have my knowledge and powers and be the new Lord." Naruto sighed and said, "Do not feel bad, Shukaku. This is for the best and your time to rule is over. When you return to Makia, seek out my predecessor and have him help you with humility. When I come I shall bring a new peace to our world. If you change your ways and become the being you were before you came to this world, I will make sure you still have some power and a comfortable life. However, if you do not, I will send you to the Shinigami himself for punishment. I already am planning on the men who seek our power meeting him. Don't make me send you as well. Now go back in your cage and let the boy have control, and let him in peace for you next few hours." Shukaku feature left Gaara and Gaara said, "I do not understand. What is going on?" Naruto sighed, returned to his normal human form and sat down and said, "Sit, we have much to talk about." The Sand Sibs did and Naruto said, "What I said was true. I came back from 13 years from now. The event that happened during this Chunin exam start a series that ultimately leads the world to be destroyed in your deaths. Do not worry about your father not liking what I am saying. The snake Orochimaru has probably already killed him and is impersonating him as we speak." Tamari gasped and said, "Father's dead." Naruto said, "If not yet, he will be soon. Nothing can change that. It's for the best anyways." The next cage helped lead Suna to prosperity for a while until he dies and is revived and war dominates the lands. Kankuro said, "Who will replace father?" Naruto said, "I will tell you this. Originally I defeated Shukaku true form and taught Gaara a lesson that changed his life. He learned to protect his precious people. Gaara went back to Suna and became the cage and started changing his people from seeing him as a demon to a protector and hero. I can only hope something similar happens this time without me nearly killing him." Gaara said, "So what are you planning?" Naruto said, "The events that lead to the attack must happen with one hopeful exception. If he runs before I can kill him, then I will have to do it later. Orochimaru is my main target right now. When the battle starts, you are to remove your headbands and surrender without fighting. If you agree to this, the Hokage will order the guards at the arena to leave you alone and I will talk to the other finalists that will be there. Gaara, do not severely hurt or kill any leaf ninja with the exception of Kabuto if you have to. He is Orochimaru's right-hand man and also the one who kills your sister after he lets his men have their way with her in a few years. She dies with child. Hopefully not this time." Tamari shivers and clenches her fist thinking about that and Kankuro cracks his knuckles. Gaara said, "I understand. Why are you willing to help me and my family?" Naruto said, "After our fight, I became an unofficial brother to the three of you because I had each of your respects since I helped you change Gaara. Shukaku will be gone soon, so you can't blame him on any death you cause. You have a new chance in life, use it well." Kankuro said, "So who's the sap that knocks my sister up? He gets hit over the head with a Tamari fan." Naruto chuckled and said, "Sorry, won't tell you. It could be me or it could be some lazy genius or some new hotshot ninja who comes in off the street. Just because they happened a certain way once does not mean it will happen again. That is the main reason to come back." Gaara said, "We should be leaving." Naruto said, "Yeah, I am already late for my wedding and my brides will probably kill me." Tamari raised an eyebrow and said, "Brides, as in one, and you are a little young to be getting married." Naruto chuckled and said, "I have 3 right now. I am the last heir and possess a bloodline, so they want me to have children left behind when I die." Kankura said, "But you are a demon now, right? So that means you can't die." Naruto said, "Only those I trust know about me being a demon." As for dying, I can die in battle, but it would have to be extreme. Gaara desert funeral would not be able to do it, so it has to be stronger than that. I plan on making it look like I get older as I get older, and then when the time is right I shall go to Makia and make it look like I died here and meet my family there. Tamari said, so what about your family here? Naruto said, when they die they will be brought to Makia. It's hard to explain, just trust me. I trust you can send Shushin out of here so anyone following you won't see you and get to investigating. Act like we never met and you're still crazy Gaara when we meet. But remember my warning. And with that the flame Shushin to the Hokage office. Tamari said, so should we trust him? Gaara said, Shukaku is behaving and says do not doubt him or get on his bad side. Kankuro said, scary. Gaara-san Shushin them to their hotel room. Naruto appeared in the middle of the Hokage office in a burst of flames and everyone was looking at him. He said, sorry I am late, I had some important guests to deal with. Ino said, was it the raccoon? Naruto nodded and said, everything went according to plan. Kiba said, okay, what the hell was that and what are you talking about raccoon? Naruto sighed and saw everyone was he wanted here and said, old man, before we have the wedding can you put up a privacy jutsu? The third nodded and did the seals. A few minutes later Naruto said, everyone might as well have a seat. This is going to take a while. Naruto sat down on the window sill and said, almost all of the genins are in the dark about this, also Zabuza, Iruka and Haku don't know this either. You all heard how I had Kyuubi sealed into me at birth by my father the Yodime, anyways the Kyuubi's is dead. Kiba said, so we throw a party, what's the big secret? Ino said, the secret is how that Kyuubi died. Shikamaru said, why do you keep talking like there is another Kyuubi? Naruto said, well genius, it's because there is. All the genins who did not know tensed. Sakura said, relax, he is good and is actually trying to save our village unlike the other one. The third said, the Kyuubi that was sealed in Naruto made a deal to send him back in time to change our future and in doing so gave his life so Naruto could travel back. Naruto became the new Kyuubi. Naruto said, to come back and change the future I had to become the new Kyuubi. Shino said, what proof do you have that you're from the future? Naruto pointed to Zabuza and Haku and said, the first time around Haku died defending Zabuza from Kakashi Chidori, Zabuza died defend Haku body while he killed Gato. Also, the war that is about to start is another thing that is my proof. Asuma said, he has been giving us little bit of information to help prepare. We had Ino dad enter his mind and he saw the event himself, including all of our deaths or your names on the memorial stone before the Leaf Village was destroyed. He speaks the truth. That's why we've been changing things and my fiancée is pregnant. Kurenai slapped him and said, you were not supposed to tell anyone about that. Everyone laughed and Ino said, okay, also you should know not to let Sasuke know any of this. He is one of the key players that leads to your deaths. Choji said, Ino, how do you know so much? Ino sighed and said, I also came back with him. We were the last two survivors of the Leaf Village. Suna, Snow, Wave, Waterfall, all fell to the enemies we have coming. Shikamaru got in his thinking pose and said, what info can you give us for what's coming? Naruto said, right, well Orochimaru will be in the Forest of Death during the second part of the test. He has a spy that will try and befriend all of us to get Sasuke's trust. His name is Kabuto. Don't use names around because he is able to get info from it for Orochimaru. The team from Suna, the one named Gaara, Lee, listen closely, if you fight him don't go all out and forfeit. None of you can beat him. I just changed history so the demon that was sealed in him won't tell him to kill you anymore. After tonight he will become like me and Ino, the actual demon instead of a vessel, but don't provoke him. No Gates Lee. Ino said. Konkuro is a puppet user, Tamari is a battle fan wind user. Tenten, you are at a disadvantage against her. Her wind abilities make it where you always miss. Even your ultimate attack. Naruto said. I already told them to not fight at the war and to surrender Oldman, so as long as they listen, and they should, since I helped them get their brother back. Anyways, if you make it to the finals, I won't tell you who does, cause it might change, but don't go all out. I know some of you want like this, but if you fight me at any time, don't go all out, because I have all my knowledge of jutsu from the future plus my bloodline I don't want to reveal, since the people who will be coming after me might find out. I don't want to accidentally hurt one of you or tip off the wrong people. We only have one shot. We can't come back Aegean, so prepare as much as you can for the coming battles. We had to keep it a secret before now because of spies. Tsunade said. I even had to limit the people I am training to be medics to women, so I could not tip off Kabuto and the Snake Tem. Zabuza said. So that's how you knew we would be in wave, huh? Naruto bowed to Zabuza and said, yes, I originally befriended Haku after the first battle when she was getting medical herbs for you. She taught me that a person can only be truly strong when they have something to protect. I hope you are not mad, and if you are, blame only me. I rather lie to you and keep you alive than see you die for a fool like Gato. Zabuza said. Don't worry, kid, I have had the time of my life since I came here, and Haku has also. Do you have any idea how much fun it is scaring the shit out of guys who ask Haku on a date and introducing them to my big head chopping cleaver here? And besides, the missions and the pay are great. Haku has also learned a lot from Tsunade and your mom. I thank you. Everyone laughed except Kiba and said, dude, you are scary with that thing. Haku said, you should know better than to try the pickup lines, want to do it doggy style, while trying to sing Who Let the Dogs Out. Kiba muttered under his breath as everyone laughed. Naruto sighed and said, this is the only warning I can really tell you. No matter what, don't befriend Sasuke. Hinata said, why is that, brother? Everyone looked at her and Naruto said sadly, Sasuke wants to get the same level of the Sharingan as Itachi, his brother has. To do this he has to kill his best friend. He becomes so deranged later he thinks anyone who once loved him he has to kill to get it. He personally killed 4 of you in this room and tried for 2 others. Everyone looked down and Yukie said, well, if that's all, we have a wedding to get started. Kiba smiled and said, Naruto, since you got 3 women to please, you need someone to help you out from time to time or to teach you something. Ino, Yukie, Tenten, Shizune, Tsunade, and Jiraiya all burst out laughing at that one. Kiba said, what? Yukie said, trust me, he don't need any help or advice. Jiraiya said as he grabbed his notebook and said, you giving out details. Naruto sighed and snapped his finger and Jiraiya's notebook caught on fire. Jiraiya said, how did you do that? Naruto said, don't put me or my wives in your books, and I am wind user combined with the spark from my snap, and I can ignite a small target within 5 feet. Sakura heard Kakashi giggling and said, what's so funny, sensei? Kakashi looked up from his book and said, oh, this is just a good book. Naruto looked at the book and read the title, Adventures of an Heir Volume 1. Naruto said, hey Gramps, that's not about me, is it? Akamaru jumped up and grabbed the book and ran to Kiba, who got it and ran around the room and started reading aloud. The Flower Maiden screamed out the heir name as he ravaged her body. The book was suddenly engulfed in flames and Naruto said, you have till the count of 10 to run. As he pulled out a tri-pronged kunai. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Anoich said, Naruto, is there something you want to tell me about my daughter? Naruto smiled and said, Nope, I am just ready to marry her and live happily ever after. Sarah said, Quit trying to scare you son-in-law or I will get the broom handle. Anoich said, He's not my son-in-law yet. Naruto said, Let's get started. The third smiled and said, Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to witness the marriage of Naruto Kazama to Ino Yamanko, Tenten Grander, and Princess Yukie Fujika's of Snow Country. Kiba said, Princess Fune, that's where I seen you from. Lucky Ba, he was hit over the head by Kurenai, Hinata, and Sakura. The third said, Now where was I? Oh yes, do you Naruto take these women to be your lawfully wedded wife to protect and cherish for the rest of your life? Naruto said, I do. The third said, Do you? All three girls said together, We do. The third smiled and said, Please exchange rings. Dustin walked forward and said, I was asked to make these rings for you, they have the Hiraishin seals in them so here you go, as he handed 3 rings to Naruto and the 4th to Tsunade. Naruto grabbed all the rings and channel chakra and said, I need all 3 of you to channel chakra into my hands while I do this. All 3 girls did and the ring stones all went from having clear diamonds to rainbow diamonds as the colors of the rainbow went through them. Naruto said, These are a sign of my love for each of you as well as protection. If you are ever in danger and can't get out, just channel chakra into the ring and it will call me to you. And he slipped 1 ring on each girl's hands. As soon as he did that, the ring tattoo on Ino and Naruto hands started to glow and one appeared on Tenten and Yuki's fingers as well. Suddenly a blinding light lit up the room and everyone disappeared. Suddenly the entire group appeared in front of a large crowd of people who were cheering. Suddenly a voice behind them that Naruto knew well said, Hello Kit, it's good to see you Aegean. Everyone turned around and saw a man with red hair and red eyes and 9 flowing tails behind him standing there. Naruto said, Kyuubi, what are you doing here and what's going on? Kyuubi said, Welcome to Makia, and as you promised that you and your mates would come here for a ceremony for our people. When you did the ring part, it activated the summoning seals on your hands and brought you all here to finish the ceremony and the feast afterwards. You can drop the shapeshift, both of you. You are royalty here and should appear as such. Ino and Naruto both changed and the ones who never seen it before gasped but could not be heard over the roar of the crowd. 3 figures walked up to them. A man, a woman, and a kid that looked about 15. The kid said, Hey bro, it's good to see you Aegean. Naruto said, Gamakachi, is that you? The man said, Yes, it's him kid, it's good to see you Aegean. Jiraiya said, Gambunta, is that really you? Gambunta said, Yes, it is pervert. Now quiet down or I will sit on you the next time you summon me. The woman turned to Tsunade and said, Hello Tsunade, it's good to see you Aegean. Tsunade smiled and said, Katsuya. It's nice to see you Aegean, how have you been? Katsuya said, I have been good. Have you found any new summoners yet besides our lord here? Tsunade said, No, not yet. Is Naruto the lord of summons also? Kyuubi said, No, he is lord of the tailed beast and Their domains like your fire lord is over fire country, but in his actual domain he is like Hokage, but as soon as the ceremony is complete the fox and the cat's domains shall become one domain and shall be ruled by him and his mates. Both demon and mortal ones. So shall we conclude the ceremony. If I am to guess right, then all that is left is the kiss. Naruto looked at the third and he said, You may kiss the bride. And Naruto created 2 shadow clones and they ran around in circles for 30 seconds and all 3 stop in front of a girl and kissed one and moved to another, then the last. Naruto then ran in circle Aegean and dispelled the clones. Kyuubi laughed and said, Always the trickster Kit, Now no one but you knows which one got the first kiss from the actual you. If the Hokage would allow me the honor. The third nodded and Kyuubi said, I would like to introduce the lord of our United Kingdom Naruto Uzumaki Kazama, and his brides Ino Kazama, Yukie Kazama, and Tenten Kazama. May they lead us to true happiness. And the people cheered, all hail Kazama. Suddenly a bright flash Aegean and everyone was back into the Hokage office. Naruto said, damn fox. I should have known he would get the last laugh. Kakashi said, what do you mean? Naruto said, it was our party and he kicked us out. It finally dawned on everyone and they laughed. After that Naruto and Ino changed back human and Kiba said, so what's with the different look and what was that about Ino? Ino said, the only way I got to come back was if I became a demon also. I became the two-tail cat, Naruto became the nine-tail fox. Kiba said, I don't care if you both are from the future. I will go all out against you just to see how strong you really are. Shikamaru said, troublesome. Hinata said, Naruto, could you tell us something about our future selves? Naruto closed his eyes so no one could see who he was speaking about said, I can only tell you a little unimportant stuff that could and hopefully will change but I won't give much details. 4 of you have children Sakura, Lee, Asuma, Kurenai, 4 of you will marry someone from this group Shino, Hinata, Lee, Sakura. 1 of you will lose his wife while she is pregnant Shikamaru Damari. 4 of you will die by Sasuke hands Sakura, Lee, Kurenai, Kakashi. 1 of you will die thanks to Orochimaru. 3rd 8 of you will die because of Akatsuki Neji, Tenten, Asuma, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Shizune, Yukie. Guy 3 of you die because of a sound ambush and Kabuto, and 2 of you should already be dead so hopefully we can save the rest also. I have one thing to say, live every day like it's your last and never do anything you have to say sorry for. Hinata said sadly, I am sorry I asked. Naruto smiled and said, let's forget about all that death for now and remember we should be celebrating. Come on and cheer up. Everyone tried to smile but they could not feel like said, I have an announcement that will cheer you all up. I am pregnant. Silence. What? Everyone screamed. Naruto smacked his forehead. Suddenly a million questions. How far along are you? When did you find out? Is Naruto the father? Are you sure? When is it going to be born? Is it a boy or a girl? What you going to name it? Kurenai said, hey we can help each other though I am only a month into it. That night instead on having the traditional they decided since they had so many emotional roller coasters just to sleep together with no. They did sleep like they did the night before but this time Ino was on the right Tenten on the left and Yukie on top since she would not be able to sleep on her stomach in the near future. The next day Yukie returned to teaching and Iruka helped her learn the proper evacuation routine for the coming war. A new surprise came in that was not expected or welcomed. A team from Iowa and from Cloud appeared and requested to enter the Chunin exams. The Hyuga and Kazama family and most of the council was not happy but the Hokage could not turn them down because the Fire Lord approved it. He did however since he had more shinobi since Root was disbanded put a BNU on each member of the Kazama family and guarding the Hyuga compound and on both teams. The Hokage quickly ordered everyone who had attended the wedding not to tell anyone until after they left. He ordered that all Hyuga who exited the house had to have at least 10 members as security. Kakashi had ordered a team meeting. He was surprisingly on time and had a quick message, all missions have been cancelled and I have nominated you all for the Chunin exams. It's in 3 days so get ready. And then he left. Sasuke started to walk off and Sakura followed Naruto. After they got out of sight of him Sakura said, I am scared of him now. Naruto sighed and said, I am sorry for that but I had to warn you all. Sakura said, it's alright. I just don't know what to do. Naruto said, so how's the training coming? Sakura smiled and said, Tsunade-sensei has taught me a lot about Metacane and she has finally gotten over her fear of blood. Naruto said, really? How did that happen? Sakura said, Tsunade said when her and Jiraiya spent the their wedding night when she took her cloths off he had a massive nosebleed and sprayed her with it and she became so pissed that she beat him to the ground for ruining the moment. Naruto started laughing and said, what about the training you have been doing with Zabuza? Sakura said, I know the Kirigakure no Jutsu, hiding mist technique, Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, water doppelganger, and the Suiro no Jutsu, water prison technique. What about the training you have been doing with Tenten and Ino? Naruto said, Tenten has been learning Earth Jutsu. She learned Doden. Ritsudo Tensho Earth Release. Split Earth Turn Around Palm Doden. Doryuheiki Earth Release. Earth Release Wall, and she also has been learning to use the Raijin. Tsunade gave it to her yesterday after the wedding so she only tried it for a few minutes. I want to teach her Kujibunshin but she does not have enough chakra yet. As for Ino, she has been doing okay. She has already got the tiger fighting style from the process in about 60 jutsu she can use. She has mostly been learning medical jutsu and is working on Kujibunshin. I have been working on my family scrolls and the third gave me the last of my inheritance finally. Sakura said, oh yeah, what's that? Naruto smiled and said, the same damn thing I stole and learned Kujibunshin off of. The Forbidden Scroll. Sakura stopped and looked at him and said, how the hell did you get that in the first place? Naruto smiled and said, why no jutsu? The old man is a pervert. The only men to not fall to that jutsu are the gay ones. You know that reminds me. With everything that's happened I have not befriended Konohamaru yet. If I don't teach him why no jutsu he won't make his own jutsu. Sakura said, you are not going to teach that kid that jutsu. Naruto smiled and said, you're right, I won't. I still need to befriend. Help. Someone help. They're going to kill him. Naruto and Sakura heard someone screaming. They both took off toward the screams and found Konohamaru in the air being held by an Iwa nin in a gray suit and a scar across his face and Udon and Moegi on the ground crying. Naruto said, drop the kid. The nin said, why should I listen to you? The nin said as he looked at Naruto. Naruto channeled his demon chakra into his eyes and they turned red and he unleashed a small amount of killer intent and said, release the kid. You won't like it if I ask again. A boy with green hair and pink eyes in an Iwa outfit appeared beside the first boy and said, Archon, release the kid now. Archon looked at the guy boy beside him and said, I don't take orders from you demon. A voice from above them said, then perhaps you will take orders from me. Naruto looked up and saw a girl with brownish blonde hair and purple eyes wearing a cloud headband and a blue battle outfit. She jumped down and said, release the kid or I will kill you. Naruto leaned over to Sakura and said, when I replace the kid take them to my home and tell Ino to get here fast. Sakura nodded and a moment later Konohamaru was beside Sakura and another was still being held. Sakura grabbed him and the other two kids and ran off while everyone was distracted. After they were gone Naruto snapped his fingers and the Konohamaru in Archon's hand blew up into flames and smoke. Everyone's attention was diverted and Naruto said, so let me see if I can guess who you are. The idiot who just played with a firecracker is named Archon. The boy with green hair is most likely Sanrei, the vessel for Yonbi. The young lady there is Yugito, the vessel for Sibi. Yugito said, Nibi actually. Naruto said, ask the demon, it's Sibi, Nibi, her sister is in the other dimension now. Yugito put her hand to her head and a moment later she started to gather chakra and said, tell me how you know this. Ino landed beside Naruto and said, "So who are the guests?" Naruto said, "Sibi and Yanbi." Ino nodded and said, "I see why you wanted me here." Archon said, "Who the hell are you and what is going on here?" Naruto said, "Go home kitty, the big dogs are talking." Archon started to attack Naruto but stopped when he sensed something. Just then a group of 4 ABNU appeared and the one in a dragon mask said, "What is going on here?" Naruto said, "Just a community meeting with my kind. The guy with the scar just along for the ride." The dragon ABNU said, "Just remember no fighting until the Chunin exams or you will have to leave the village." And they all disappeared and he went to inform the Hokage. Naruto sighed and said, "Want some ramen? It shuts the guys inside up because they love the stuff." Sanrei said, "How do you know so much about us and them?" Naruto said, "Well, lizard, you should know not to mess with a fox. And cat, your sister said hello." And he walked off with Ino toward Ichiraku. Yugito started walking behind them and Sanrei also started, but Archon stopped him and said, "Where do you think you're going?" Sanrei said, "I am going for answers. Like you said, I don't take orders from you." And he walked after them. Archon turned and went toward his hotel, and though we will see about that demon. I bet Master Zetsu would like to know about all these demons here. Naruto sat down in one of the corner booths near the back with Ino beside him. Ichiraku had grown a lot lately thanks to a nice donation from the Kazama family for years of service to their family. They now had air conditioning and several tables and booths. A few moments later Yugito and Sanrei sat across from them and Ayame walked up and said, "What can I get you?" Naruto said, 40 bowls of the supreme for all of us." Ayame nodded and left. They sat in silence for 5 minutes when Ayame returned with the food. Naruto paid for it and said, "Can we have the privacy screen?" Ayame nodded and Ino went through some hand seals and said, "It okay to talk now?" Naruto quickly ate a bowl and said, "So you want to know how I know about you, right?" Both of them nodded and kept a hand on their weapon pouches. Naruto said, "You really should lighten us and eat. It's good food and your demons will mellow out for a little bit. They will be scared when I get serious." Sanrei said, "Yanbi is not scared of anything." Naruto smiled and said, "Not even Kyuubi." Both of them were stuck in the spot because of the killer intent coming off of Naruto. Naruto stopped and said, "I take it I have your undivided attention now." They both nodded and Naruto said, "Allow me to introduce myself and don't get exited when I do or I will kill you. My birth name is Naruto Kazama, son of the Yellow Flash, but I am known as the vessel of Kyuubi no Kitsune. I have all of the old one's power and he ceased to exist in the world. He along with Nibi are in Makai. That is how I knew you contain Sibi. As for how I know your names is because I have been keeping tabs on a group called Akatsuki. They are watching you. They are getting ready to target all the tailed beasts so they can free the Yoroi Sasori body armor scorpion. Ask you demons who that is." He waited a few minutes as he and Ino ate. Ino said, "Did it always take you this long to talk to Kyuubi?" Naruto said, "Sometimes. I figure the demons are still swearing about not killing that creature when they had a chance." Yugito said, "I talked with Sibi and she says for me to listen to you." Naruto said, "Sanrei is still talking so eat something while we wait." Yugito played with the ramen a moment and finally ate one bite like it was poison. The next thing anyone knew the bowls were being cleaned out. Naruto said, "Ino dear, can you go get about 15 more bowls?" Ino smiled and said as she got up and left. As Ino left Yugito said, "Why does she smell like cats?" Naruto said, "Perhaps I might tail you sometime." Sanrei blinked and looked at the table and said, "I can't believe you ate all of that." Naruto said, Me and Ino only had 20 bowls total. Yugito here ate the rest. Ino came back and just sat the ramen on the table and Yugito dove for another bowl. Sanrei said, "Is that stuff really that good?" Yugito said, "It's so good Sibi is purring. She never purrs." Sanrei took a bowl and slowly took a bite. Naruto and Ino scooted as far away from the table as possible as the two fought to get at the food. Ino said, "I thought you were bad." Naruto said, "I did also. This is crazy." After the two finished, Naruto said, "I guess you liked it, huh?" The two nodded with smiles on their face. Naruto sighed and said, "Okay, here's the deal. I don't trust either of you, but I have no choice. If that group gets their hands on you and the rest the world is screwed. I have already taken care of Shukaku. I want both of your words and that of your demons. You will do what I tell you." Sanrei said, "Why should I listen to you? My mission is to kill you." Naruto said, "Either you listen to me or you are on your own." Against Itachi Uchiha of the Leaf, Kisame Hoshigaki of the Mist, Deidara of the Rock, Zetsu of the Grass, Hidan of the Rain, Kakuzu of the Waterfall, Tobi, Sasori of the Red Sand of Suna, and possibly Orochimaru of the Sannin if I keep with his plans. They both paled and Naruto said, "I take it you know of these men." "There are two other members, but I can't get any real data on them. They are all members of this group and will be coming after you. I can give you a shot at beating them, but I warn you. You try messing with me, my family, friends or village in any way, I will kill you." Sanrei got up and said, "I don't care what you say, I am not doing what you want, son of Yondaime." As he was leaving, Naruto said, "You're a dead man walking. If I encounter you, I will kill you to save the rest of the world from those men getting your power. If you do anything to the ones I warned you about, I will make it extremely painful." Sanrei turned and said, "So be it. When I see you Aegean, I will kill you." Yugito said, "What do you want me to do?" Naruto said, "What was your life like in Cloud?" Yugito said, "Rough. My father is the Raikage. He took over after the last one took his life after the Hyuga incident." Naruto said, "Truthfully, do you have any plans or hopes of getting any Hyugas or Their Eyes?" Yugito said, "Actually no. My mission here was two-part. One was to show the Leaf the strength of Cloud. The second is, we have heard about you. My sensei has in her possession a proposal for a political marriage. My father fears for my safety in our village because someone has been causing trouble and exposed what I am." Naruto said, "Would it be possible to bring that proposal to the Hokage's office in 1 hour?" Yugito said, "Yes." And got up and left. Naruto sighed and muttered, "Troublesome. On some hill Shikamaru sneezes." Ino looked at Naruto and said, "What are you thinking, Naruto?" Naruto said, "I am thinking about your stepsister. I don't want them to get her and I am just researching options to keep her safe from them." Ino said, "You know I never thought of it like that, but what about the marriage thing?" Naruto said, "I don't know. I won't decide. If it is to work, then all of my wives have to agree. I don't make a decision like this without each of yours consent. I am just curious about what the Raikage is offering." Ino nodded and said, "In that case I will get the others and meet you there." Naruto said, "Get Mom, Granny, and Arozanen also. I have to see Hiash." Ino stopped and said, "What are you going to see the Hyugas for?" Naruto said, "If anyone will throw a monkey wrench in this, he will. I want him on my side." Ino nodded and left and Naruto went toward the Hyuga compound. When Naruto got there, 10 branch members and 4 ABNU were at the main gates. A branch member said, "State your name and reason for being here." Naruto said, "Naruto Kazama, requesting an audience with the head of the clan Hiash Hyuga." A branch member left and returned and said, "Follow me." Naruto walked in and was led to the council chamber where Hiash and the rest of the council was. Naruto walked to the middle of the floor and waited for permission to speak. Hiash had his Byakugan on looking at him and Naruto flash a little demon chakra and said, "Only I can have red demon chakra so you know it's me." Hiash said, "What do we have the honor of a Kazama clan member here today?" Naruto said, "I am aware of the history of your clan and the Cloud Village. I came here to discuss 3 things." Hiash nodded and said, "What is the first thing?" Naruto said, "I have a scroll with a seal I would like to give to you as a peace offering. It is better than the current seal you have on your branch members and can be put on all Hyugas. It will make it impossible for anyone to steal your family secret through breeding, removal or death." Murmurs went through the council and one member said, "Why would you want to interfere with our clan traditions in the first place?" Naruto said, "It is common knowledge throughout many villages and our own the branch family feels like they are slaves and they do not care to protect the main family as well as they could. I would offer this because I hate the curse of people with seals. My own existence before my family returned as proof of what seals do to people." Hiash said, "You said a moment ago that they could not get it even through breeding. How can you be sure?" Naruto said, "The seal is designed that all children born from parents who have the seal won't be able to use their bloodline for 5 years. If the seal is not placed on them during that time, their bloodline will be sealed forever. It changes the cell structure for bloodlines. It is designed where if the eye is removed or death the eyes will automatically destroy themselves. In other words, your family members will go from not wanting the seal to wanting it and safely securing your bloodline forever. Any child born outside the clan's control by the age of 5 won't be able to get their bloodline, making it where you don't have to worry about that risk as you do know." Hiash said, "Very well, what is the second request?" Naruto said, "I had a interesting run it with one of the teams from Iowa. I was able to get some information from him. His current mission is to kill me during the Chunin exams. I am not worried about it, but it does state they still hold a grudge against my family. If they start anything, I have mastered both my father's signature jutsu and I will re-educate them if needed." "That is not what I thought you would like to know. During the time I was getting my info, a member of the Cloud team got into our little discussion and found out her current mission. I have a meeting with the Cloud team member in less than an hour in the Hokage's office. She is the daughter of the current Raikage that took over after the Cloud incident." Hiash said, "That is interesting. What is it she wants to see you about?" Naruto said, "A possible political marriage." A member of the council said, "Who is the arrangement with?" Naruto said, "She claims it is between her and the heir to the Kazama clan. In other words, me." Hiash said, "So what do you want from us?" Naruto said, "I need a biased opinion at this meeting. I figured with things the way they are between Cloud and Leaf and your clan's views on the matter, no one else can be more biased than you. I request your person presence, Hiash. If the proposal is half as good as I am expecting, the Hyuga clan opinion will be the one the council will listen to the most. I don't want anyone to say I am keeping secrets from the council on this matter. I know you will want your own security for it, and that brings me to my third request. If you agree to come and voice your opinion of the proposal, I want any guards you bring to remain silent about everything they hear and see. They must not also speak while in the meeting." Hiash said, "Very well, I accept your proposal and your peace offering. I will tell you know that I will have a seal master check out the work, and if it does what you claim, we shall start using it. I will meet you there shortly." Naruto bowed and flamed Shushin to the Hokage's office. When Naruto appeared, the Hokage was finishing his paperwork and said, "So I hear you had a little meeting with Iwa. What do I owe the pleasure of this meeting?" Naruto said, "I came to inform you that we have 2 additional vessels in town now. One is from IWA and his mission is to kill me. The other is from Cloud and her mission is to marry me. She will be here shortly with a proposal for a political marriage. My family as well as Hiash will be here also for the meeting. I knew if this proposal was to work I would need the Hyuga's backing. But I won't accept it without my wife's okay. The third said, you truly live up to your nickname. The number one hyperactive knucklehead surprise ninja. So tell me, how is things coming with the scroll? Naruto said, I got most of the jutsu off of it but they are last resorts. I memorized the demonic soul seal, Fuinjutsu Shiki Fujin, as a last resort. The third nodded and a knock was heard. Enter. In walked Hiash and the entire Kazama clan with 4 Hyuga bodyguards. Naruto walked over and shook hands with Hiash and patted him on the back and said, thanks for agreeing. Naruto then turned to his family and said, did Ino tell you what this is about? They all nodded. A few minutes later another knock was heard. After the third said enter Yugito walked in with her sensei. The sensei bowed and said, my name is Mela. I am Yugito sensei and her temporary guardian. I am only her as an escort and her safety. The third said, you may sit in the chair to the right of you. Mela sat and crossed her arm. Naruto said, so do you have the proposal? Yugito said, yes but it is sealed with a blood seal. I must cut my finger so I am not trying to attack. And she reached into her kunia belt and took a kunia and cut her finger before dropping a few drops on the seal opening the scroll and putting the kunia back. Yugito then handed it to the Hokage. The Hokage said, it says, Ijijin Outdower, the Yondaime Rakage of the Hidden Cloud Village wished to offer a political marriage proposal to the heir of the Kazama clan. I wish to correct the idiotic mistakes of my predecessor. I wish for this proposal to be shared with the Hyuga clan for the actions taken by my country. I offer my only daughter Yugito as well as the Hidden Cloud Village secret scroll and 10 jutsu, 1S, 1A, 2B, 2C, 2D, 2E rank jutsu from our village in the deal. Yugito has the scrolls but require her blood and a special jutsu to open them and she cannot give them until after the wedding. What I want in return is protection for my daughter. I have heard of the condition the Kazama heir is in and my daughter has the same. She contains Nibi, the two-tail cat. Unlike you vessel she had the Nibi sealed in her by a rival of mine for the title of Kage before he was killed. He wanted to make my people hate me for protecting her. I may be a proud man but I am a father first. I request her secret try to be protected but if it gets out please protect her. The heir to the man who was my rival discovered his father's journal and has started a campaign to try and remove me from office by using my daughter's condition against me. I wish for you to answer before the end of the Chunin exam. If you accept I ask that she not return for her safety. I will also offer a free sample of information. I have information that the Sound Village is planning on attacking you during the Chunin exam. If you accept this deal her sensei has a signed non-aggression treaty between our countries. Signed. Jijin Outdower, the Yondaime Rakage of the Hidden Cloud Village. The third rolled up the scroll and said, Yugito and Mela, could you please wait in the lobby and let us discuss this in private? They both nodded and left. Hiash said, that is not what I expected and what of the information about an attack? It could be a trick. Naruto said, it's no trick, we already got information about it and discovered Orochimaru is the Otokage of sound. He is coming for 3 reasons. 1. The destruction of Th Leaf, 2. The death of the third, and 3. The Sharingan. He is planning on either recruiting or abducting Sasuke. Hiash said, if you have all this information, why have the council not been informed? We have to protect the Sharingan. The third said, we have already discovered 22 spies for him and have been leaking false information. The council was not informed because we know of one on the council now. There may be others. As for protecting Sasuke, we have a trap sat inside the tower for him if he shows. As for the Forest of Death, we have 10 teams of ABNU patrolling the area undercover to try and protect him, plus Naruto will hopefully be able to stall him long enough for them to attack. Hiash said, I understand, but what about the individual clans? Naruto said, we know of one member of your own council reporting to him. Hiash was shocked. He had to sit down and said, do you have any proof? Jiraiya pulled out a file and read from it, Hyuga, Baraban, cited on the nights of June 5 and 9 and 14, describing the debates about clan head and which members of the clan can be caught or captured on which dates. Hiash will be taking his yearly sabbatical to the Fire Lords to resign the annual bloodline treaty. When he is gone, the youngest daughter of the main Hyuga branch will be left behind for training from the council. She can be captured during her lunch period because she eats alone in an abandoned classroom because she is antisocial. She can be captured at this time. When Hiash heard this, he said, the only people who knew I was planning on leaving her here was the council. I believe you. Just then a branch member went to attack Hiash from behind. Naruto disappeared in a yellow flash and reappeared behind Hiash with a kunai in his hand and stabbed the branch member in the stomach before chopping him on the neck, knocking him out. Tsunade walked over and treated him, and an ABNU who was called took him to Ibiki. Hiash was shocked and Naruto said, that's one of the reasons we designed that seal for you. Anyone from the council could force or convince a branch member to do something like this because of the damn cage bird seal. Anyways, we are getting off track. What do we want to do about this? Hiash said, so you really can perform it. I assume you places a marker on me when we shook hands earlier. Naruto nodded and Hiash continued, I think it is worth the deal. She would have to become a leaf nin and act accordingly. I request that she be put on restriction where she can't come near the Hyuga compound for 1 year without written request for her to be there. If after that year she does not do anything that would be considered dangerous, then I have no problem with it. Naruto said, is that what you will say if the council brings this up? Hiash said, yes. Naruto sighed and said, now all we need is the verdict from my wife's. Hiash raised an eyebrow and said, wife's? I thought that you were not going to be married until after the exams. Naruto said, we wanted it to be private for close friends and family. Your daughter and nephew were at the ceremony, but with the Iwa Nins showing up, the Hokage put a gag order on all news about it for their protection. Hiash said, I understand and I will keep it secret. A sign of trust between our clans. Naruto nodded and said, so what do you think? Ino said, I say we give her a test. Say, she has to show us her colors during the exams. If she does not do anything to any one of our 3 teams during the 2 part of the exam besides maybe aiding, I say yes. Tenten said, I agree. Yukie said, well, I don't see any problem with it. I mean, we all knew that there would be another woman sooner or later to appease the council, so let's give her a shot. If not, we can maybe get a consolation prize. The third nodded and signaled for them to come back in. When they did, the third said, we have decided to give you a test. Between now and the end of the Chunin exam, you must not harm any Leaf Shinobi outside registered matches. If your team encounter any of the 3 Leaf teams that Naruto, Ino, or Tenten here are on, you can only eye them. Any others are open during the forest exam. Do you agree with the terms? If the attack does occur during the exam, you are to aid the Leaf any way you can.